There are a lot of things in horror films designed to scare us. Whether that be ghosts, murderers, creepy dolls, or a murderous ghost possessing a creepy doll. Everything that goes bump in the night in this genre is meticulously engineered to terrify audiences. However, there's arguably nothing more frightening than the end of the world. The utter annihilation of everything we know and love. The apocalypse has been a subject tackled in numerous forms of media over the decades, spanning the likes of Orson Welles' radio play The War of the Worlds and Cormac McCarthy's bleak post-apocalyptic novel The Road. The apocalypse, though, is most at home within the horror genre. It's only here where the themes of nihilism and destruction synonymous with these tales are able to go all out to provide a provocative depiction of a world on the brink of collapse. No matter what the cause of these fictitious but nevertheless unsettling end-of-the-world events are, be it a viral outbreak or other cataclysmic happenings, apocalyptic horrors tend to use their horrific circumstances as a catalyst to examine facets of humanity to bone-chilling effect. And so, with that in mind, I'm Ellie with What Culture, here with the 10 best apocalyptic horror movies you need to see. Number 10, The Crazies. A remake of George A. Romero's 1973 cult classic of the same name, Bret Eisner's 2010 version of The Crazies follows the grisly ramifications of a viral outbreak in a small American farming town as a group of civilians try to escape. When a military plane crashes near the town, a chemical weapon is released that contaminates the town's water supply and infects the population. Known as the Trixie virus, those who succumb to its effects are gradually transformed into crazed zombie-like beings who exhibit violent behavior. Whereas Romero's original was more akin to a political thriller that focused on the government and military's approach to containing the outbreak, the newer version leans firmly into the horror aspects of the outbreak. It shifts the focus to a small group of civilians led by local Sheriff David and his wife Judy, as they venture through the town in order to search for a means to escape, avoiding both infected and military on their way. As far as remakes of classic horror go, The Crazies is how to do it right. It stays respectful to the source material while offering its own bleak and brutal outlook on the same premise. Number 9, No Blade of Grass. One apocalyptic horror that's likely passed you by is 1970 exploitation flick No Blade of Grass. Based on 1956's The Death of Grass novel, this underseen film was directed, produced and co-written by Oscar-nominated actor Cornel Wilde. After mass pollution caused a global famine, the world has been thrown into chaos. People fight for whatever little food remains while governments cull millions of their own population. Amid the ongoing panic, John flees London with his family before the roads are blocked. Their aim is to travel across England to a farm in the north where they'll have access to food. But to get there, they'll need to fight against other groups of travellers and a Mad Max-esque motorcycle gang to ensure their own survival. As you'd expect from an exploitation film from this era, subtlety isn't the name of the game here. Frequent shots of dead wildlife and billowing black smoke are a constant reminder of Wilde's unwavering political stance. This imagery is only matched by the level of violence which establishes an impenetrably oppressive tone, including an infamous rape scene that drew controversy for its gratuitous nature. Though difficult to watch, Wilde's apocalypse is nevertheless worth our attention. Number 8, It Comes at Night. One of the stranger offerings on this list, Trey Edward Schultz's It Comes at Night, is a claustrophobic, nuanced and horrifically grim study of paranoia and the breakdown of trust within a post-apocalyptic scenario where caution is integral to survival. The film opens sometime after an unknown sickness has torn through humanity. Paul, his wife Sarah, and teenage son Travis have made a life for themselves in a fortified home in the woods. Joel Edgerton's family patriarch has strict rules for how to prevent them from becoming infected, with the only way in and out of the home being an ominous red door that's always kept locked. When Will suddenly intrudes on their property, Paul reluctantly agrees to let him and his family stay with them. The partnership is beneficial for both families at first, but tensions and mistrust soon prevail. Meanwhile, Travis is deeply affected by the agonizing death of his grandfather and is plagued with nightmares. Though this film's title alludes to it being a monster movie, the "it" here refers to the inescapable fear that looms over the household when the sun sets, and it makes for some downright chilling viewing. Number 7, In the Mouth of Madness. What do you get when you mix horror legend John Carpenter with the cosmic horror of H.P. Lovecraft? The answer is In the Mouth of Madness, the final entry in Carpenter's unofficial Apocalypse trilogy, a surreal, bloody and unrelenting wild ride into insanity. Acclaimed horror writer Sutter Kane has released a new novel that seems to be driving whoever reads it insane. Even stranger, the author himself has disappeared. It's then up to fraud investigator John Trent, alongside alongside Sutter's editor Linda to get to the bottom of this bizarre mystery. With the frightful effects of Sutter's work already taking hold on the public, their investigation leads them to the small New England town of Hobbs End. It's at this point where things move into high gear. Sutter's horrifying creations are beginning to bleed into reality, turning the town's residents into grotesque monstrosities. The books, we find out, are conduits for cosmic beings who want to take over the world. Sutter is in control of it all. In the Mouth of Madness is arguably Carpenter's most provocative and challenging, yet unjustly underrated film of his career. It's easy to see why horror fans have championed it. Number 6. A Quiet Place. Set in a post-apocalyptic world in which creatures with hypersensitive hearing have annihilated most of Earth's population, John Krasinski's A Quiet Place follows the Abbott family as they try to survive by making as little noise as possible to ensure the creatures don't detect them. Opening with a heart-wrenching sequence that instantly sets the film's suspenseful tone, what follows is an intimate and surprisingly touching story of a family torn apart by tragedy. There just happens to be monsters here too. Krasinski and Emily Blunt are outstanding in their roles as Lee and Evelyn Abbott. Likewise, youngsters Millicent Simmons and Noah Jupe are equally incredible as the Abbott children. The actors' engaging performances keep viewers heavily invested in the family's plight, and when their situation worsens, it's difficult not to be affected by the sacrifices that ultimately need to be made. Of course, it's impossible to talk about this film without highlighting the sound design. As the title suggests, this is a very quiet film. In a world where the slightest of sounds can mean your death, the characters need to be as silent as possible. The effect is simultaneously intoxicating and unnerving. Headphones are required to get the full experience of the atmosphere. Number 5. Threads. In the early 80s, humanity was on the verge of a real-life apocalypse that could happen with the simple press of a button, as tensions between the US and USSR intensified. 1984 saw British filmmaker and documentarian Mick Jackson, who'd go on to direct The Bodyguard, envision what life would be like if the UK were hit with a sudden nuclear warhead. The result was Threads, a shoestring kitchen sink drama that premiered on the BBC on the 23rd of September 1984. Its impact was so startling that this day was dubbed the night the country didn't sleep. Events begin on a mundane note. Young lovers, Ruth and Jimmy, are swept up in romance despite their opposing social backgrounds. Ruth is pregnant and the pair have a bright future ahead of them. However, news bulletins highlighting rising political turmoil suggest that something devastating is about to happen. And then, at the 46-minute mark, terror strikes. The first bomb hits, plunging society into chaos. The bombing sequence itself is realistically horrifying, but it's Jackson's chilling vision of the fallout that will remain etched in viewers' memories. Despite its small budget, Threads holds nothing back in showing how horrible a nuclear apocalypse would actually be. Number 4. Pulse. The virus that spreads through Tokyo in this understated masterpiece has nothing to do with zombies. Rather, this viral outbreak is more abstract in nature within its nihilistic examination of technology. The sickness that infects those in Pulse is loneliness, and it's spread through the internet. This 2001 film follows two groups of young people who begin to experience strange phenomena surrounding technology. There are ghostly images on computer screens, a mysterious website, and forbidden rooms marked with red tape that are inhabited by spirits. The ghosts in this film aren't the vengeful type seen in other J-horror classics. Instead, they're infinitely lonely beings who've begun to use the internet to infiltrate the world of the living. Anyone who encounters these spirits becomes overwhelmed with despair until they lose all will to live, leaving only a shadowy streak behind. More and more people start to disappear until only a handful of survivors are left wandering Tokyo's streets. A bleak and somber reflection on how technology has only managed to alienate and disconnect humans further, Pulse is just as relevant 20 years after its release. Number 3. Time of the Wolf. A sobering and thoughtful study of humanity, visionary filmmaker Michael Haneke's Time of the Wolf takes place in an unspecified European country after an unspecified event has resulted in the collapse of society. We follow a French-speaking family fleeing the city to seek refuge in their country home. However, they arrive to find another family has claimed it as their own. An intense confrontation erupts and the father is killed. With no aid from anyone around them, the remaining family members venture out alone into the pitch-black darkness of the night to find shelter. Their hopes are eventually answered when they're able to join an organized community at an old railway station. In keeping with Haneke's style, Time of the Wolf is provocative and vicious in its depictions of violence, made all the more effective through the filmmaker's unwillingness to sensationalize these gruesome acts by keeping keeping them off screen. Despite the gloominess of the family's situation, the film isn't without hope. Small acts of kindness shine through the darkness of this realistic vision of a post-apocalyptic world. It takes a filmmaker as skilled as Haneke to find profound beauty in an apocalypse. Number 2, 28 Days Later. Within the writhing horde of zombie-based apocalypses that have populated cinema over the decades, arguably none have stood out or been as influential as Oscar-winning director Danny Boyle's monumental 28 Days Later. In case you somehow managed to sleep past this one, the plot follows bicycle courier Jim awaking from a coma 28 days after a virus has ravaged the UK. London is thrown into disarray as masses of infected overrun the empty streets. Jim is forced to come to terms with this new world and, alongside a ragtag group of survivors, find some form of safety as the world falls apart around them. Unanimously praised by critics and audiences upon release, it's easy to see why Boyle's film has been frequently cited as being responsible for reviving the zombie genre in the years that followed. The central cast give outstanding performances throughout, especially Brendan Gleeson, who never fails to break hearts every time you watch this film. A hypnotic soundtrack sucks viewers into the desolate London streets, and the fast-moving infected brought zombies into the 21st century. However, it was the intimate focus on the human connections between the characters which made this film truly special. Number 1, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. The end of humanity doesn't have to be a cacophony of chaos and zombies. It can be a much more covert and insidious affair. This was the case in sci-fi horror classic Invasion of the Body Snatchers, a remake of the 1956 film of the same name, which was based on the 1955 novel The Body Snatchers. Philip Kaufman's adaptation has become the definitive version of this quiet alien invasion. The film stars Donald Sutherland and Brooke Adams as co-workers who discover that an alien species has infiltrated Earth in the form of seeds which grow into strange pods. These pods generate perfect duplicates of sleeping people in their vicinity, replacing the original when grown. The copy perfectly matches the original's appearance and shares their memories. However, the pod people are devoid of normal human emotions. Unfortunately for our heroes, the invasion is already underway by the time they understand what's happening. Who's human and who isn't becomes impossible, and it's this overhanging paranoia that drives the film's uneasy atmosphere. Presented in a detached, voyeuristic style, The Quiet Invasion is grounded in a realistic, even mundane world. Consequently, this makes the moments of surreal horror all the more terrifying when they occur. And that concludes our list. If you think we missed any, then do let us know in the comments below, and while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap that notification bell. Also, head over to Twitter and follow us there, and I can be found across various social medias just by searching Ellie Littlechild. I've been Ellie with What Culture. I hope you have a magical day, and I'll see you real soon.